You didn't build a great business by being timid. And now it's time to get back to business the same way you built it, with passion. UBS is here with the resources and knowledge you need today. We've weathered the storm with business owners for more than 150 years, and what we've learned can help you right now, not just for your own personal goals, for your business. With insights and strategies to help you get up and running with the focus and determination that made you a success in the first place. It's a matter of asking the right questions and speaking with the right people who can help you find the solutions to move your business forward. With UBS, the possibilities are endless, but the focus is always on you, your family, and your business. Why not benefit from all of the knowledge and resources available to you from UBS? Few people could have built what you built. Proceed with passion.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Boston Globe Leadership's Lunch Series presented by UBS. Today, we will focus on the history of Black entrepreneurship in New England. I'm Gregory Lee, Senior Assistant Managing Editor for Talent and Community for the Boston Globe. Before we get to today's chat, let's get a few words from our partners at UBS. So let's welcome Renita Macklin.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you for the warm welcome as well. It's really great to be here today and an honor for UBS to host such an important historical discussion on Black entrepreneurship in New England. To our guests who have joined us virtually, good afternoon and welcome. My name is Renita Macklin, and I am the Deputy Head of Ultra High Net Worth Americas at UBS Private Wealth Management, focused on client segment strategies. I work with business owners and entrepreneur clients to support them as they start, grow, and ultimately exit their businesses. On behalf of UBS Global Wealth Management, I'd like to thank you for joining us to reflect, remember, and celebrate not only the history of Black entrepreneurship in New England, but also the boldness of these pioneers, both free and self-liberated, who audaciously dare to start their own legacy through business ownership in the free enterprise America of historic New England. Before we begin, I'd like to set the foundation of our discussion today in history, to set the stage for what has been accomplished, where we are going, and ultimately where we need to be. Although there are many, I'd like to mention four notable historic figures from the local area. First, Thomas Jennings, the first African-American inventor to receive a patent in 1821, using the proceeds of his dry cleaning process patent to contribute to the abolitionist movement. Second, Rebecca Lee Crumpler, first African-American woman to earn a medical degree in the United States. Third, Absalom Boston, owner and investor, who captained an all-Black crew whaling ship, ran an inn, a store, and several real estate ventures, while also leading the equal rights movement in Nantucket in the 1820s. And fourth, George Franklin Grant, a Black dentist who invented a special device to treat cleft palates and the inventor of the golf tee in 1899. Such historical examples of Black entrepreneurship and innovation are self-explanatory of the requirement that firms such as UBS be an advocate and partner with the minority business community today. UBS is a dedicated partner of small businesses and a strong supporter of entrepreneurs. With a long tradition of a more than 150-year banking history, to include in New England, through our lineage as a Swiss firm with a strong foothold in the United States through the purchase of PaineWebber in the late 90s. Throughout that history, UBS has emerged as the largest truly global wealth manager with $2.6 trillion in invested assets. Business owners and entrepreneurs are the backbone of our local communities and the driving force for change and innovation in our world today. Today's event promises to be informative and enlightening, with a great panel of speakers lined up, who themselves have broken barriers and pushed boundaries to be successful in their own business communities. I look forward to learning more from our panelists. And so without delay, I'd like to turn it back over to Greg to kick off this exciting discussion.
Thank you, Renita, for just giving us that great historic perspective as we have this conversation. And thank you to UBS for this partnership. Before we get started, some housekeeping. If you have any questions, please go to the bottom of the screen in the Q&A section and submit your query. So let's get started with the conversation. First, let's introduce our esteemed panelists. First, we have Paris Chandler, founder and CEO and creator of the Black Tech Pipeline. Hey, Paris.
Hello, hey, happy to be here.
Jessica Pierre, Director of Strategic Communications of BECMA, the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. Hey, Jessica.
Hey, happy Black History Month.
And finally, we have Nia Grace, owner of Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen.
Good morning, afternoon. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, Nia. How you doing?
Good.
All right. Looking forward to this conversation. So let's get it going. The first question will be in light of last week's news that the soon-to-be departing mayor, Marty Walsh, signed an executive order for an additional $160 million to entrepreneurs of color. His executive order requires at least 10% of the money the city spends annually in outside contracts for construction and professional services and goods goes to companies owned by people of color. Here's a two-part question. What is your response to these developments? And what has been the lasting impact of the lack of support for Black businesses in this region? I'll start with you, Paris.
I think that's great. There's definitely been a lack with just founders getting any sort of investment or help with starting and growing their businesses. So I'm happy there's some development. For me, I also don't commend things like this because it needs to be long lasting. It can't be a one-time thing. It needs to be consistent. And I hope that this continues to happen and grow and really feeds, Black and brown people, people of color, being able to start their own businesses and, take off and thrive.
Jessica?
Thanks, Greg. So I just want to note that this is the third executive order that Mayor Walsh has signed in his tenure as mayor. And despite this being his third executive order, based off of what we saw in the disparity study, we saw that there has been no type of results, no type of impact. Despite these ambitious goals that the city has set, there are no clear milestones, there's no clear accountability, and there's also no clear steps to get to that percentage goal. So the problem is a lot bigger than just setting executive orders. The problem is really rooted in racism. And if we don't address that head on, if we don't address the fact that there are plenty of Black-owned businesses that are willing and able to work with the city, but there is just a willingness. We have not seen that bold leadership to actually create the infrastructure, to actually put forth the investments, to actually give these public contracts to Black-owned businesses, then we're not going to see any results. So it's just another empty promise that we have seen from this administration, unfortunately. And I am excited that we're going to have acting Mayor Kim Janey serve as a leadership, because she has been advocating on this issue for a very long time, as well as Boston City Councilor Michelle Wu. So I'm excited to see what they will bring forth to the table. I think that we're at a pivotal moment in the city as we transition out of the Walsh administration. And I'm hopeful that we will not just see baseless executive orders, but we'll also see action and we'll also see results and impact in our communities.
And we'll talk about a little bit more, go a little more depth about the future administration and what the city is going to be going through in this change in this pivotal moment with the mayor's race coming this year. Nia, what's your response to the original question?
I mean, I second everything that Paris and Jessica said, and it's essentially like less talk and more action. Less executive orders, more strategic plans and steps to get there. One of the things is I know that we're doing it now, and we're really trying to hold our administration accountable. But it literally starts with us. It starts with the citizens of the city, the entrepreneurs, to not accept what is being said, to continue to question, to continue to have these kind of conversations and platforms, and not be afraid or shy away for the fact that Over 98% of the contracts that have been given out in the city have been given to primarily white enterprises. So I think that we're doing exactly what we need to do right now in this moment, but it's more than just administration that needs to not let up. We as citizens also need to not let up and make sure that we're calling for more action.
And I got a good question in the preset questions that probably joins my original question from Darnell Cuba. He said, what are the efforts to reckon with, reconcile, and repair the histories of the systematic issues in Boston's business sphere? And this will probably lead into the moment we're going to go into with the historic possibilities of the future of the mayor's election this year. So I'm going to go with you, Jessica, with this question of how can we reconcile and repair those issues we have here in the city, in this region?
There's a lack of investment. So I just want to emphasize that there are a number of Black-owned businesses in the city that are having social impact, that are generating capital, but we've seen a lack of investments in these businesses for their sustainability and for their growth. So when we don't invest in the Black business community in Boston, we actually don't invest in the Black community overall, because we know that Black-owned businesses are the ones that actually employ other Black people to work. They're the ones that are creating the generational wealth to be able to change the trajectory of a lot of the disenfranchisement that our communities have been a victim of for generations. So it's a very simple, it's an important question to ask, but it's a very simple answer. If we don't address systemic racism at the root, we're not going to see investments in the Black community. We're not going to see growth in the Black community, and we're not going to see racism subside. So it trickles into our economics. It trickles into our communities in a number of different ways, into our education system. But the solution can be to invest in Black-owned businesses in a way that they can become sustainable, in a way that they can become scalable, in a way that they can employ more people. But we just haven't seen those investments done. We don't see that pipeline. We don't see Black businesses getting the VC backing that we see other businesses receiving. And it's a matter of trust. It seems like there's no trust in giving Black-owned businesses large amounts of capital, because there's still this stereotype or this notion that we don't know how to manage or handle our money. But out of survival, we've had to handle and manage our money in creative ways so that we can continue to sustain as a community. So we're actually better equipped, I would say, to be able to manage large numbers of investments, but we're just not given those investments. And that's the problem, and it's rooted in racism.
Nia, I'm glad in my return to Boston to see that you have taken over Darryl. So congratulations from me. It was a good return to Boston to see that. So to answer that question, what have you seen? What can be done to help repair the issues we've had with systematic racism in the business community here?
You know, I think it's a matter of acknowledgement. Again, to Jessica's point, we've got to acknowledge that we've had a problem in the first place. And a lot of people actually want to skirt past that issue and then try to fix something that they're not even figuring out where the root is coming from. After you acknowledge that issue, then let's really start to sit the people at the table who it's actually affecting. Like, get us at the table and start asking us some questions. Let's start asking me, and asking us what our goals are going to be or what we need to do. And let's set those goals and like really focus on checking off these boxes, and not checking off boxes for statistics sake, but actually making sure that when we're looking at our executive team, and I look around the room, is there diversity in terms of age and race and sex and gender, right? So I think that that's how we have to look at the entire system. When we look at who we're employing, or we're looking at who are these policies that we created, who were they created for, who had the advantage in the beginning, and then let's start to figure out, well, how do we weed these things down? For me, I'll say, particularly coming from the restaurant industry, what I was able to see during the pandemic was that a lot of these policies and really dated procedures, in fact, were unnecessary. We were able to move so many things along with people who got to the table and said, you know what, we have a problem here. And a lot of this, matter of fact, 75% of it is unnecessary. We've already trusted you to do X, Y, and Z. We sit here, we register businesses, we go ahead and take care of our taxes, we employ, we support our own community. Yet at the end of the day, when it comes down to a contract, you don't think I can figure out how to get a contract? or you don't think I could figure out how to get my certification, or I have to really verify that I'm a Black woman in order to be qualified for something. I got to do that. So, I mean, I really think that we have to take a look at what we have already in place and really start to strip it back and say, we got a problem here, and it starts at the root.
Paris?
I'm looking at this from my own work that I do within different organizations where, you know, you have the base level employees who are, you know, they really want to give opportunity and resources to the Black community. But then when it comes to leadership and C-level executives, there's always like this stop. It's like, you know, we can't do it right now. It's not in the budget. It's not priority. There's all these excuses. And it's like, you can only make so much change when leadership is not bought into it. They don't really care about it. They're not putting any investment into it. So, you know, for me, I like to keep my heel on the neck, you know, and continue saying, you know, like things need to change. You need to be actionable. You've been performative for so long and I'm done with it, you know, and I want to continue as a Black woman. I'll give opportunity to those in my community to see them grow and thrive. But again, if leadership does not change, if those in power do not change, I just feel like there's only so much we can do. So you have to keep fighting for that as well. While also, of course, bringing your own people to your table.
Definitely very important to try to help uplift your people, bringing people into the tent and help them grow and to achieve their goals too as well. Staying in the political lane, we mentioned before the mayor's Boston will go and embark in something that's never happened, the possibility of not having a white male in office. As you mentioned, Kim Jennings poised to take over as acting mayor in Boston, and this fall we have an election, and the race will look like it would be a slate full of people of color. So what will be the impact, if any, for entrepreneurs of color in the city with a different type of administration that this city has never seen before? I'll start with you, Nia.
I mean, I just want to jump out there and say empathy. And I say that because a lot of times, you know, as we're sitting here trying to build and grow, there's a true disconnect, a true lack of understanding of where we started from and what we've had to grow through to get to where we are. And so finally, I think as we look at this landscape, we'll have someone who can literally and truly relate to us, understand, have a bit of compassion and empathy, and really be able to work in that space as well. Politics is about the people and interacting with the people. And as much as it's about policy, it's definitely about the people. And I think that for a little bit, we've been missing that true connection. So I look forward to, you know, bringing in, you know, Council President Janey as our acting mayor. And I look forward to a cadre of changes, hopefully, after the November election.
Paris?
I agree with Nia, especially just being able to resonate with, you know, people of color are able to resonate with other people of color's journey, but especially, you know, Black and brown people, Black women being able to resonate with one another. And that does bring in empathy and it brings attention and awareness to us. And I see that as it's a step forward. It's exciting to have someone being able to understand where you're coming from, understand the hurdles that you go through, and then thinking of ways to combat those and you know, really get the ball rolling with making improvements and making real change.
Jessica.
I agree. I definitely think it's a very exciting moment for our city right now. But while representation is really, really important, it's not the end all be all. So the fact that we do have such a diverse pool of candidates that are people of color at the moment, I think it's also important that we take a very, very close look at their track records, take a very close look at who are they engaging with in the community, what have they advocated for before, what are some changes that they have done in their respective roles that they were a part of before they announced their candidacy for mayor, because we know that all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Yes,
and I think that it's
that
really,
right.
really important to just keep that in mind, because just because we have someone of a particular race that is in an executive role, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in it for our best interest. And I think that while it's important to have leadership at the top that represents the people, it's also important to challenge the systems as well too. So think about who is running on platforms where they want to change the system, because we know that if we have somebody that's in an executive role that could be somebody of color, there's a lot of barricades that they can face because of the system, because of the way that it's set up. One person can't change the system.
person.
So are they partnering with community? What is their track record? What are they advocating for? What have they advocated for in the past? And I think it's really important that we ask a lot of the hard questions, and we continue to make sure that Black issues, particularly Black economic issues, are at the forefront of this mayoral race, because we know that in order to have a healthy economy overall, we need to have a healthy Black economy as well too. So if we have candidates that are not necessarily talking about what exactly they're going to do for Black businesses, for Black communities in Boston, then we need to be a little bit concerned.
No, you're absolutely right. You know, like I said before, this is the first time we have probably a non-white mayor, and it'll take more than one person, because the whole system has been set up for a very, very long time, and expect one person to change the whole entire dynamic getting in the office after so many years of one way of doing business. It just would be a hard lift and expectation for one person. But as you mentioned before, it has to take a collective look at everyone involved and what the next mayor can do to foster beginning the stages of change. There's one question. Today, there are a number of Black creative people in this entrepreneurial space in Boston. And we talked a little bit about this offline yesterday, Jessica. Where's the pathway for sustainability for, we have a lot of young people who start businesses and they get like early support, they get like press, they'll get a lot of attention. But when the lights go off 6, 7, 8 months later, they may not be continuing. So how can we sustain and help grow these creative people and to keep them in this region? I go with you, Jessica, since we started this conversation yesterday a little bit offline.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep emphasizing that it's not the fact that Black businesses in Boston are not creative, or Black businesses in Boston don't exist, or that they're not coming up with amazing business ideas. It's strictly a lack of investment. So we tend to do things, and Paris, you mentioned earlier, a lot of performative action. So, given the events that happened last summer with the assassination of George Floyd on live video, there is more empathy, but the empathy has to translate to sustainable change. So it's great that, media platforms like the Boston Globe are highlighting more Black creatives and Black community members that are doing, that are having social impact, but exposure is not going to pay the bills. So companies can continue to highlight people, they can continue to share their platforms, but what are you doing in your hiring practices? Are you contracting with Black-owned businesses? How are you monetarily investing in these creatives? How are you monetarily investing in the Black economy? And those are the questions that we need to ask ourselves. People always say, well, I just need a list of Black-owned businesses so I can go and support. And while we appreciate the support, we truly do, but that's not enough to become $1 million business. That's not enough to become $1 billion business. We need true investments. It's really a shame that this city has so many resources. We're home to the best colleges. There are so many startups that are becoming successful in the city, but none of them are from Black and brown people. And the issue is not that Black and brown people don't have the capability to create $1 million business or $1 billion business, but the issue is the lack of access to investments. We know how to apply for grants. We know how to apply for loans, but we're not getting them. And that is the problem. That is the issue that needs to be addressed head on. What are we going to do to put more funds, to put more money in Black and brown businesses so that they can go forth and create these strong, sustainable businesses and have an overall impact on the Black economy?
Yeah, with sustainability and with the restaurant business is, it's the biggest thing. It's being sustainability. So from your perspective, how can we achieve that here for Black businesses in this area?
For me, I think it's definitely the investment is necessary. The financial investment is necessary, but I feel like as an entrepreneur, we know what we do to, pull our resources together to start our businesses, to go after our passion. But a lot of times that's what we're going out there with. It's like the person who really wants to play basketball or, any kind of sport, and they just get out there and they get started, but they then need that coach. And so I come from a space of mentorship. We need more mentors. We need more programs that are accelerating our businesses, that are, in fact, taking our passion and putting it into the strategy and form that will then get us to those larger, revenue generating companies. And so I say that it's not enough to, just give me the loan, but then just kind of leave me out there. No, actually help me utilize this best. Everyone is in fact not, best with their finances or knowing how to look at a P&L. And it might be just something as small as that. Everyone knows how to, tell their friend and maybe say something on Facebook and Instagram about their business, but in fact, not have a strategic marketing plan to make sure that we are on the, the top of the brains of everyone. So it's great to get some press, but sometimes we don't even know how to take that press and use that to our advantage. So while I can appreciate all of the things that come our way, sometimes it's simply just mentorship. And I raise my hand often to say that you can always give me a call or a stop by and have a chat about how to get to your end goal. And I may not ever have all the answers, but I think that sometimes, especially with us in our community, let's have a real conversation about that too. Sometimes we get to a point in our success that we actually forget about how we got there and we forget to reach back. And so I call that as our responsibility. We absolutely have to be about the reach back, mentoring, and helping us get align our strategic goals for our wealth.
Paris?
I totally agree with Jessica and Nia. We need to go back to the communities to give them resources, to give them mentorship. Don't wait for anyone to come to you. If they don't have access, they don't know you exist, you need to go to them. So that means literally getting up out your seat and heading over. That's just what it takes sometimes. And then also, I forgot what I was going to say just now.
Okay.
Heading back to the communities. Oh, what I was going to say, definitely we do need mentorship, but we need long-term relationships. So after that mentorship, how are you going to give us that opportunity, which will then pay us? I think at least where I'm coming from the tech sector and being in an online business, a lot of investors love to give mentorship, but they don't ever give that actual investment. They don't compensate. They don't allow us to grow our business financially. So yes, mentorship, but then what? You need to keep going. That it needs to be a long-term relationship.
And since I've heard mentorship a couple times from you guys, I'm going to veer off into a question I've seen from one of our participants. It says, how do you start those conversations with young Black people on entrepreneurship? How do we get them in that space? I go with you, Jessica. Start it off.
For me, entrepreneurship is all about chasing your wildest dreams. Entrepreneurship is all about believing that you have the ability to create impact in your community, create impact in the country, create impact globally. So it all starts with just letting our young people know that they can do whatever it is that they want to do. They're not limited to certain career paths. They're not limited to what they see in their community or in their neighborhood, that the world is theirs. So when we empower our youth to go out and chase their wildest dreams, you can be entrepreneurial without starting a business. You can be entrepreneurial in your career. So just reframing the conversation and not necessarily restricting our youth and being like, a lot of times in our community, we want young people to have better lives than we have had growing up. And a lot of that is tied to financial issues. So we want young people to pursue careers where they're going to make a lot of money. So whether that's a doctor or a lawyer, I know that was a common theme in my Haitian family. And I told my Haitian family I was going to work in politics, and they were like, we'll see how that how that works out. But I think it's important to just let them know that the world is yours. You can do exactly what it is that you want to do, but to also model that for them as well too. So we have a responsibility to show the up and coming generations that we are chasing our wildest dreams, that we are advocating for our communities, that we are bringing other people up, to show them that this is the pathway to success and to reframe what success looks like as well too. So I think it's just a matter of starting with that basic conversation. What is it that you're passionate about? What is it that you care about? What is the change that you want to see in the world? And then help to guide them based off of what they say. Here are some steps that you can take to start to do that now. Because young people can do anything, especially with access to the internet. They can do anything right now. They can start $1 million.
There's no excuses with the internet. You got that right. That's all they've been living on the internet. I tell all my students that you have no excuses with the access you have today. It's much easier.
Right.
Paris?
Again, I think it's like going back to our communities and letting them know of all of the possibilities that there are. I think like even creating programs around having different types of entrepreneurs and professionals, come in and let them know that these types of careers exist, and, letting them know about their journeys and how they did it, and allowing networking to start at a very young age. I think like that's just very beneficial. So creating those types of programs and opportunities.
Nia.
I mean, I simply underscore, what both Paris and Jessica said. I think it starts really early. It starts with normalizing the word entrepreneur as well. I'm not really sure I even really heard it or had it in my vocabulary until I was well into college, first of all. Yet at the same time, both my mother and my father were serial entrepreneurs, but they just never spoke of that. And it was my mother as well who was like, you're going to go to law school and you're going to become an attorney. So I think it's one of those things like, let's just change the narrative. Yeah, you can become an attorney, or you can in fact start the law firm and really start there. So.
Very good. I'm going to go to the next subject. But first, someone mentioned a friend and colleague, Kelly Chun, wanted to mention, and this is important, at the start of the program, we talked about the history of Boston and entrepreneurship. We need to mention William Monroe Trotter, who was a newspaper editor, an activist, and a real estate businessman who was based in Boston. And on that note, especially a newspaper editor, and there's a group called the Trotter Group, a bunch of Black columnists who have a group formed together to share Black columns. And so his legacy lives on, especially in the National Association of Black Journalists. But given that, what is the media's role in shaping what we have seen in the past and in today's coverage of Black businesses in this region? And I'll start with you, Nia.
Media's role. I think it's so important. We've always highlighted the importance of media, and we definitely can admit that it has fallen short in years. And it's not just talking about business, it's just talking about our culture in general. And so I think that, right now, the media needs to be responsible. And when I say that, is definitely responsible for the content that you're putting out there. Think twice about what, the next story might do to help or hurt a community that might already be hurt, And so when I look at it now, I'm definitely not overjoyed, but I'm happy, or at least a bit more satisfied with the coverage and attention and actual intention that the media has taken in the last year to make sure that we are celebrating these success stories so that we can have, again, a better narrative of what's going into the classrooms. I remember, and I'll be shorter, but I remember when I was in the 8th grade and my science teacher told us that we always had to pick up the Boston Globe, in fact, the science section, pull out an article, write about that, etc. But between getting to that science section, I had to pass up all these different stories of what was going on in my community that really hurt and broke down my community. And so now being able to see faces like myself, on the front sections of the business area or, economics or community building, that's really great joy. And I think that is it. We're just looking for the media to take a greater responsibility in knowing that that how much influence you have.
Paris?
Definitely what Nia said, totally agree with that. And I think being able to tell, as someone who is not Black, you should be able to publish stories about Black people in a way that really celebrates them and doesn't. I think there's like this pattern with stories where anytime, a Black entrepreneur does something or they become successful, there's always this mention of like, oh, they had to jump all of these hurdles, but thanks to this white person who noticed them and gave them this opportunity, it's like, just celebrate us for what we've done. And I just think, getting more eyes on something before you really put it out there, just because even if your intention is well, the way it comes off to someone who isn't from your community, it's not going to come off the same way. It's not going to be perceived the same way. So, really being aware of how you really shape a story and shape your words and getting second eyes on that. And yeah.
Jessica?
So as somebody who is a communications and public relations professional, but also as somebody who is a Black entrepreneur, I'm kind of on both ends of the spectrum. And I think that in addition to what Nia and Paris have said, I think the issue is that a lot of the journalists and reporters and the media in general, they don't go out into our communities and build authentic relationships. So we're seeing now that more Black journalists are being hired at the Boston Globe. So shout out to the Boston Globe for doing that, because that's really important, because I spent years not seeing anybody who looked like me represented in the Boston Globe. And that's unfortunate, because this is my home city's one of the main papers, and I haven't been able to see any representation in there. But also to go a step further, because I feel like at the moment, now that there's increased visibility for a number of different Black community members in the city, we're still seeing the same people getting covered in a lot of these media outlets. And while I'm really happy that people are getting coverage, it also needs to be diversified. So when you're able to build genuine connections in the community, when you're able to build those authentic relationships, you'll know about those amazing stories that the general public doesn't know about. You'll know about those unsung heroes in the community, and you'll be able to cover them in a way that is very true to who they are and true to how we view them and value them in our community. So it's not just about hiring a handful of Black journalists. It's also the people who are covering these issues, the business reporters who are not Black, actually going out and doing the work and not just covering the same people over and over and over again, because there's so many people. So that's why I love what I do. I love working in PR, because I'm just like, I meet people and I'm like, your story is amazing and I want to pitch it. I want to make sure that you get covered, because people need to hear your story. People need to be inspired by you outside of your close circle, outside of your close network. So right. I hope that when this pandemic ends and people are not just on Zoom meetings, or, because that's another issue. Digital access is another issue that is a barrier for our community as well too. So when people can actually physically go to community events, physically go visit businesses in person and have conversations with people and build that relationship and that connection, so that the reporting and the media coverage can be something that is truly authentic and genuine to who we are as people.
Great. I have a question submitted. What words of advice can you share with aspiring business owners, and what are or were some major challenges you have faced or have seen others during a business planning, growth, and development? I'm gonna start with you, Paris.
I'm going to be honest, I haven't faced anything yet, but I'm sure I will get there. For me, I started my business online. And my business is literally for the Black community. And that's a community that I grew, organically. And so things have been working out really well since then. I haven't come across any issues yet, but if I do, I will be able to give you my points.
or more specific, or if you have friends or colleagues who run into challenges as well, if you have any anecdotes on that too as well, for all of you guys, if you have any. Jessica?
So I started my first business in 2016, and I'm gonna share a little tidbit. So I used to work at Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen, and Nia Grace was my manager at the time, and I used to work as the host, and I was like, that's where I started to get the entrepreneurial bug. I was like writing ideas down, and Nia was definitely somebody who really inspired me by her work ethic and her drive and her ability to just connect with people. I think that that's what makes her so great at what she does, because she genuinely cares about people. Like she's hospitality personified, and in addition to being an amazing, smart businesswoman. But I faced a lot of different challenges when it came to funding. So the first business I started, it's called Queen's Company. And it started off as an organization that was just throwing events for women of color to come together, throwing women empowerment dinners. And it was so hard to find access to spaces that would allow us to host these events. Thankfully, Daryl's was one of our first sponsors and one of our major supporters that really helped us hit the ground running. But there are so many barriers that you can face that are going to cause you to have to pivot, that are going to cause you to have to get creative. And my best word of advice would be to not give up. Reevaluate, redirect, re-strategize, pivot, but do not give up on yourself. Do not give up on your dream. That persistence makes the difference, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't know what next week is going to bring. And if you quit today, then you're not even going to be able to access the blessings that the future had in store for you. So don't quit. And as somebody who works in public relations and communications, I have to say, know your audience. I know a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start a business, they're always like, my business is for everybody. No, it's not. So don't be afraid to define it. Don't be afraid to be very clear on who your business is for, and don't be afraid to unapologetically pursue that. Because when you're clear on who your target audience is, you're going to attract that target audience to your business, and that's going to be more revenue, more impact. So that would be my words of advice.
Nia?
For me, it's don't overthink it. Sometimes you just have to say yes, and at the risk of maybe copyright infringement, you just got to do it, right? As Nike would say. And I say that because a lot of times I think we're waiting, and I would say this for women, we probably really try to wait until the idea is fully baked. We want to know exactly what it looks like from A to Z. We want to have the backup plan in case it was to pivot like this. And then we're like, all right, now we're ready to go. And in this instance, I've had other businesses as well, and I just did it, but I kind of like halfway did it. And this time around with Daryl's, it was like, if you're going to do it, you just have to be all the way in. And it doesn't matter if it's not already laid out for you. Trust that your passion, and it might sound weird. I know we're really calculated with things, but just trust that your passion is going to drive you and get you there, and you will definitely figure it out along the way.
I actually wanted to add something now that I've heard Jessica and Nia. I think my piece of advice would be that whether you pursue building your business and chasing your dream or not, that time is going to pass by regardless. And I think that you should jump on that opportunity and try to do it anyway, because again, the time's going to pass. You can build your network, and you can build it more easily now that we have the internet and things like Twitter exist, and you can, network with people on there who are sort of in the same field as you and get their perspective and advice and even mentorship and opportunities. So use social media to your benefit and go after your dreams. The time's going to pass by anyway. Go after it. You can do it.
I have another good question here. What about networking mentorship directions for people who aren't, quote, young? The 40+ club who want to begin. I feel there's a huge ageism with always focusing on the young and not including the now generation of Blacks who want to begin and don't know where exactly, or feeling insecure because of our age. So what about, are there opportunities, this is a good question. I'm gonna start off with you, Nia.
Yeah. I mean, I say that because I actually have two mentors or two mentees that are older than me, that when they came to me, it was actually, and again, it goes back to us. We just got to reframe how we think about things. All this time, I thought that, a mentor-mentee relationship meant that somebody who was older and had more years of experience were going to, mentor me. But at the same time, let's just look at the years of experience. Our generation, I happen to be a part of the millennial generation as well. We've got so much different technology that our predecessors did not have. And it doesn't make them any less experienced. It doesn't make them any less valuable, but it does now require that they need a bit of help. And I think that as long as we understand that, and I mean, I love my mentees because I learned from them. And it was just an honor for them to ask me and say, hey, well, I've been watching you and I want to learn from you. And when we talk about ageism, I think for me, being younger, I just had to say, snap out of what you thought, Nia, and realize that you can add value here. And I think as long as we're focusing on adding value, age doesn't matter, and you can approach any one of us. And I'm speaking for us all right now.
Paris?
It don't matter. It just doesn't matter. No, age is not a reason to not do something. I'm a big believer in it's never too late. It really just isn't. And again, being older, you just have so much more perspective and experience, that others don't, because they haven't experienced it yet. So you can act as a mentor. You are extremely valuable. Don't ever think that because of your age is too late. It's just not. It's not true.
Jessica?
Yeah, I can totally understand the concern around that, because just like Nia said, we have access to so much technology, and like our culture has shifted in a way that is more favorable to young people that are desiring to be in these spaces. But I also think that there are a lot of multi-generational spaces as well too. And I think that as long as you're willing to, no matter what age you are, you're willing to acknowledge the fact that we're all students, we're all learning life, and we all still have so much more to learn. So sometimes the value that you add, it might not necessarily be that you're sharing your expertise, but it might be that you're asking the right questions to learn. And then in asking the right questions, you're allowing other people to learn around you as well too, or you're sharing a different perspective that other people who might be considered experts might not have even thought about. So I think it's important to not let age be the thing that's really holding us back, because with my organization, Queen's Company, while all of us as co-founders who started the organization were millennials, but at our events, it's completely multi-generational. We have people who come with their moms, we have people who come with their grandmothers. And that's really important because everybody has something to contribute and everybody has something to learn. So as long as you're willing to go a little bit outside of your comfort zone and maybe be in spaces that are predominantly occupied by millennials, but you're there willing to build that genuine connection, then it's gonna pay off. And there are a plethora of organizations that are also geared to more seasoned professionals and business owners as well too. You know, BECMA, we are definitely multi-generational. While our full-time staff is millennial led, but a lot of our members are from a variety of different ages as well too. We have programs for people in different stages of their career and their business. So please reach out to organizations like BECMA, reach out to organizations like you know, the Mass, I think that it's called the Mass Black MBA Association or something like that. But all of these organizations are multi-generational and they all offer virtual programming while we're in this situation where we can't necessarily be in person. So networking can happen on social media. It doesn't matter what age you are, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, doesn't matter what age you are, you can still build genuine connections. So it's just a matter of kind of getting a little bit outside of our heads and being willing to get uncomfortable a little bit to break down that barrier and take that initial step. But once you take that step, communities will embrace you because that's what we do for our communities overall.
That's right. The next question, a good question, is especially during this time, how to navigate Black entrepreneurialism during this COVID-19. What's been the struggles have been like, the challenges during this pandemic time? What's up with you, Paris?
For me personally, I think it's more for my candidates. My business has always been online and I do recruiting. So jobs are always hiring. So I've been in a safe space. But as for candidates just losing jobs and coming back, and they're not just losing jobs in tech. I mean, they're coming from different professions. There's like, you know, there are writers, there are salespeople, they're losing their jobs and they need to adapt to this new way of remote life and needing to pick up technical skills. So being able to give them those resources so that they can learn these technical skills and adapt to this new way of like remote life because of the pandemic, being able to help them out. But there's been so many. So that's really been a challenge because unfortunately you can't help everyone, but you can certainly try. So yeah, just really for my candidates, just trying to get them to succeed during this time right now.
Nia, you had to deal with these challenges of the pandemic on the fly. How have you been able to manage during this period?
Managing during this period is definitely been something that is just such in flux. And it's one of those things where we are already set in the industry, you got to kind of be nimble, got to be quick. But this is like kind of put a new definition on it. I think one of the struggles that we had was our businesses in general already had a starting platform that just wasn't level. And so when the pandemic hit and these issues kind of exacerbated those pre-existing conditions, you know, it just left us more feeling helpless, you know. And I think to Jessica's point, we've always done a good job of supporting each other. And it was during this moment that we just had to build together. One of the things that I'm like super impressed with is, you know, online, how many businesses have been growing through this period, but how many have been growing with the support and connection and collaboration with others, where during this time, we really found the necessity in working together. Whether it took us getting back to this point for us to do that, however we got here, I'm just so impressed and blessed by that. But when we got to that point of really looking to each other, we found this renewed sense of, I would say, self-sufficiency, right? And that is attractive. And what we've done now collectively have become so attractive to the rest of the world, the rest of the environment. Like, well, wait, what are they doing over there? We're surviving, we're thriving. It's what we've been doing for decades. I know you didn't care before, but we're doing it now. And to me, the growth is great. And so while we are still struggling, what we haven't done is given up. And what we have done is, in fact, reach back out to everyone who's reached to us to say, hey, listen, I acknowledge there was an issue. I see that you need help, and I'm here to help. And those people who are authentic are showing up. And that is why I'm here and other businesses are here today.
Jessica, what are you seeing during this unprecedented period?
I mean, it's sad. It's really, really sad. It's a really tough time. A lot of my favorite businesses have closed down. I've seen a lot of people have to pivot and change direction. But in addition to what Paris and Nia have said, I think this moment has also shown us how the intersectionality of social issues impacts our businesses. So often we think of business, we just think of like economics, we think about, how we can make the most revenue, but we're not thinking about how certain policies on the city level or the state level or the federal level can actually affect the way that we run our business. We're not thinking about these emergency situations where we're actually going to need government to step in and provide assistance. So it's really important that if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, that you're also staying politically engaged and that you're also advocating for yourself and your community as well too. And that's why we at BECMA, we provide direct support to businesses, but advocacy is a huge part of our work, because we know that there are those moments where government's gonna have to step in. And if we're not actually making sure that we have people who are looking out for our best interests, or we have infrastructure in place for government to be able to provide aid, then the sustainability of our businesses are gonna be in jeopardy. So it's really important to think of these moments. I mean, the pandemic showed us how important our overall health is. And that's something that we as a people, not just Black people, but people in general, we neglect often. We take for granted the fact that we can go outside and walk and breathe without a mask on. And I think that we have to be more intentional about all these intersecting issues and understand that they can all impact our business in a number of different ways.
Another question, we probably have a few more minutes, but this could be my last question. We may get to another one. But this is our city, this is Boston. And how can we encourage new age entrepreneurs to grow their business, and that the business most important thing, that Boston is the place for them to have their business? I'm gonna start with you, Nia.
Thanks, Greg.
No, we all know Boston has challenges. We all know this. We recognize that. So how can we convince people that this is the place that they can actually have a sustainable business and stay here and plant roots and actually have success in the city?
I think it's a matter of more of us just actually speaking up and talking about it. Like I said, I didn't know the successes that lived within my city growing up. It took me leaving and coming back and really asking the question, where are my people at? I know there's a lot of us, and so for me, I think that we are definitely on the right track. But we have to, business owners, the city's got to treat us nice as well. We got to be able, when we get on these panels, to say, I've had a lot of favorable experiences with the city's, people. And so what I'll say right now is that I've had some more favorable experiences, but let's reduce the barrier, and traction of us growing. So that I can actually say, wholeheartedly that I love this place and that I love having my business here and that I haven't had these different challenges. I do believe that Boston, for what it's painted in terms of diversity and advancement, just really show up for sure and make sure that, we are getting those calls that are saying, hey, there's a place that's vacant. I think it needs some revitalization. I know I've seen the work that you've done already. I want to bring you here so that I can bring somebody else along. It's a longer answer, but I'm happy to be doing business in Boston right now. And I'm really happy about the opportunity to do more. Yeah.
Jessica?
So I was born and raised in Boston, and I never left. And as a young entrepreneur, young professional, Other cities are very attractive for a number of different reasons. And I've had a number of challenges just trying to grow professionally, trying to start a business, trying to have a social life that is something that, I love in this city. But the reason why I stay here is because where there's challenges, there's opportunities to create change. And I'm not going to leave Boston until I actually create some type of sustainable change. And I think that there's a lot of people who are committed to doing that work in this city. And it's just a matter of tapping into that network. So if you want to create something from scratch, create something new, Boston is a perfect breeding ground for that, because you can work in coalition with other people who are actually trying to do similar things, people who want the city to be more attractive to Black professionals, to Black business owners, to Black entrepreneurs. So we're in a moment right now, and it's a really, really important moment because there is so much opportunity with all the challenges that we're facing. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to say, I don't like this city, I don't want to be here, I'm going to move? Or are we going to say, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to commit myself to creating the change, because I know that I want the generations that are coming after me to be able to have a better life, to be able to have better resources, to be able to have more sustainability. And that's the philosophy that I believe in. So I'm committed to staying here for as long as I have to, because I'm not leaving until there's change, as long as I can afford to buy a house here. But that's a different conversation.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation, trying to buy a house in this real estate market. Paris, I'll give you the last word on this.
Yep, me and Jessica may know more than me. I don't have a physical business location because I am online. However, as a person who has lived in Boston her whole life, I left a couple of times, but always came back. I really do love this city. I really do love Boston, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it hasn't changed. It's changed dramatically. A lot of my childhood friends are gone. A lot of places that used to be full of people who look like me are now not. And I guess, like, selfishly, I want to bring that back. I want to see more people who look like me in the city, and I want to see them have their own businesses and thrive in this city. And of course, I'm here to help. We have a community here to also help. So I would hope that people do come back and give Boston a chance, because there's a community here who wants to help and support you and see you thrive in this city.
I want to thank you, ladies, for bringing your insights and your commentary. Really enlightened conversation, and hope that the audience has received a lot out of you today. And before we go, we want to get some closing remarks from our partners. Renita Macklin, can you come back and share some closing remarks to our audience? Take us home.
Well, I can't believe the discussion is over already. I really enjoyed that. And thank you, a huge thank you to the Boston Globe and our incredible panel of speakers. Greg Lee, thank you for moderating. Paris Chandler, Jessica Pierre, Nia Grace. I take your point, Nia, about the need for mentorship, and Jessica investing with dollars. And also Paris, the need for a long-term relationship. So thank you all for mentioning those extremely important points. It's not lost on me that over the past 10 years, minority businesses accounted for more than 50% of 2 million new businesses started in the United States, which created 4.7 million jobs. There are now more than 4 million minority-owned companies in the United States, with annual sales totaling close to 700 billion. Yet, despite this growth, there is still disparity when it comes to access for capital for minority business owners, something that was very much mentioned today. Though minorities make up 32% of our population, minority business ownership represents only 18% of the population. So obviously, while the numbers of minority-owned businesses are a source of optimism and hold promise for the future, much still needs to be done to encourage and strengthen the minority business community. And at UBS, we recognize the important need to be part of that conversation. UBS financial advisors work with individuals, business owners, and entrepreneurs to help build wealth and leave legacies that continue to be impactful to local communities and society as a whole in a meaningful way. And UBS understands the unique challenges that face businesses, especially during the COVID era. Our goal is to provide tailored advice and solutions to private clients and family offices. Oftentimes, business owners and leaders like to separate their personal wealth from their business. But I believe that business and legacy are inextricably linked. and that personal wealth and business should be discussed in tandem. It is important for companies to integrate strong social and philanthropic values into their mission and identity, just like the powerful entrepreneurs that we have on our panel today and of the past that are represented in New England. So as a reminder to our audience, please feel free to check out all of the resources UBS has for business owners at our UBS Business Resilience Center website. The website address for those who are interested is www.ubs.com/business-resilience. At UBS, we have the resources and expertise to provide advice and guidance for our clients. As we have learned today, business leaders certainly know just how important their communities are to their success, but also the importance of empowering their local communities by giving back, even in the face of the daunting challenges we face today with the coronavirus pandemic. So we look forward to continuing the conversation with you at UBS, and more importantly, to empower local business owners and entrepreneurs to thrive. So thank you, Greg, for allowing us to sponsor this panel today. It really has been a pleasure to be part of this discussion.
Have a good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.